All right, hello. This is Doug from at Tramp Traveler. That's YouTube / at Tramp Traveler, and this is part two of two parts video of purchasing Arizona land, looking for land that you want to camp on, you want to build on, just want to own, economical, the ins and outs, what's good land, what's not. So bear with me on this. I'm not going to do any of the shuttle bus build on this video here where the other ones have had some of that on it, because I need this to be continuous, that it'll flow from one end to the next. So in this video, we're going to be looking at zoning, the types of buildings or RV living that are allowed, what permits you need, or if you don't need permits, access to water, whether it's a well or tanks, or you pick it up yourself or have it delivered. All about septic systems, all about access to electricity, the use of solar instead of having electricity brought in, places for good shopping, supplies, public lands that you can camp on, and map apps that you can use to help you on your search. There's several different kinds that'll show you property owners and stuff like that, even down to addresses. And how to search for someone who can help you find real estate, whether it's a .com or some of the realtors in the area. There's several that are very good for hunting for cheap land, owner finance land, very little or no down payment, low interest or no interest payments, no background searches, no credit searches, none of that, So, yeah, very good video right here. This is part two. So watch this and have your paper handy and your writing utensil and take copious notes. Here we go. Now let's talk about zoning restrictions. This Apache County is, like I said, probably the most liberal with allowing you to do whatever you want with your land. But there are some restrictions. Navajo County over there, quite a few more restrictions. And first, let's talk about camping. Some of the areas, whether it's Navajo County or further north, further south, with an RV or a camping trailer or a tent or whatever you want to use, some of them have a 30-day restriction, maybe a 1-week restriction. Some say no camping. But other ones, maybe 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. They might even give you 6 months if you are building and you've got a permit. And you might be able to get that extended another 6 months if you're not done with your construction. So be aware of that. Ask questions, but be very careful about what you ask these counties, because they remember who's asking questions, and they've already building a profile of you. Do they need to be watching out for you? Are you trying to skate over some of the regulations? Do they need to be checking up? Or maybe they just got such a big area because, it's a huge, Apache County, Navajo County, they're huge. And, the Apache County's out of St. John. And they've only got maybe one person for each of the different duties. He's got, a million acres to supervise. And he certainly can't be driving over these. But, then you have locals, who might come complain to the county about you, the way you're living. And if you hear my puppy whining, he woke up and found out that I wasn't in the recliner with him. And he's calling me back over there. And he's totally deaf, so I can't talk to him. I can give him some hand signals like this, but that just means nothing, you know. It means he's got my attention. He's a good doggy, but he woke up because he had to go pee or something, and I put him out on the porch, which is a big concrete slab, and it's been dripping. The eaves been dripping and then freezing once it hits the ground. So it's a shiny glare of ice. He's out there, and he doesn't dare cock a leg, you know, and take a leak. He tries to squat, and then all four of his legs go sprawling out, and he falls right down. So he's got to try again and go in a different area where the ice isn't so slippery. It's good to have a little bit of snow on top of that. Feel sorry for him. I chuckle every time, though, because he doesn't know that. Anyway, if you want to live in your camper, this area that I'm talking about here is probably the most liberal. You can just do it. You know, they don't care. There again, you know, some of these neighbors that you might have, if you zoom in on maps and see where someone's been living, they've got junk piles. It's just, the whole area, the whole property is just covered with the junk. And so you got to know that if that's being allowed, that the county is not too concerned with what's going on in their county. But you may have a neighbor who does care, you know, and he's complaining about it. And then that's going to make them focus on you. Sheds. Now, you can get sheds. I believe there's a company right in Show Low who builds sheds. They're, you know, maybe $7,000 up to $14,000. But the biggest that you can get that you don't have to have a permit for is a 200 square feet, which, you know, most of them would be a 10 by 20. But you can get different combinations. As long as it's not over 200 square feet, you don't have to have a permit to put it on your property. I see shipping containers being used quite a lot because if you're not going to be there all the time, they're good, secure containment, you know, for storage. Some convert them into homes, only if the county doesn't care. My idea is, you know, get a shipping container there so that if you're not going to be there, at least your property that you have to leave there while you're doing other stuff isn't going to get ripped off because, you know, in your town areas, there's not a lot of jobs, and you might have some drug addicts, you know, that come out and look for anything to steal. I talked to the police departments, the sheriff's department, and they say that that's not a big problem, but it's maybe a big problem in the local areas, you know, where there's like cities and stuff like that. But out in the county, especially if the roads aren't that great, you're not going to have as much of a problem with that. And if you make it so that it's hard for people to break in, they're going to pass on and look for easier targets. But, you know, I myself would want to put in a 10 by 20 shed and be in an area where I could actually fix that up on the inside, insulate it, put in a heater, put in an inside water tank, and maybe get a shipping container and cut a door in it and place that smack dab in front of the door of the shed so that you have to go into the shipping container first, which is more secure, and then you can get into the shed from there. Of course, you might want bars over your windows just to be safe. You know, if you're not going to be there all the time, if you're going to go down to Quartzsite or the Southwest during the winter months, you know, they can see, you know, if there's snow on the ground, because some of those areas in the winter get snow on the ground, and it might not last for very long, but it shows that nobody's home. And so that's easy pickings, because these places are so remote that you don't have to worry too much about neighbors driving by, especially at night. You can put in cameras, that are enabled to go over the internet to your cell phone so that you can see when someone's there, and you got a speaker and lights and stuff so you can turn on. You've seen this stuff advertised on TV. But that means you got to have electricity there in order to keep those things going. And if it's wintertime, solar can have some problems with that because it gets covered up with snow. And, you might be able to get by with a battery bank that'll keep your cameras going long enough for the snow to melt off in there, because it's not there all the time, but it's been, some of the videos I watch, people are saying they had snow on the ground for 2 weeks at a time. So anyway, anything larger than 200 square feet has to have a permit. And it doesn't matter if we're talking a barn or a shed or a stick-built, on-site built house, anything larger than 10 by 20's got to have a permit. And, of course, then if you're going to live in it, you got to have an occupancy permit before you can move into it. And in order to have an occupancy permit, you've got to have a septic in first, your house inspected, and electric. And when all those are together, then they come out and they say, okay, it's ready to live in. Occupancy permit is approved. Then you can live in it. You're talking a lot of money there, but no more probably than any other state in the union, except for it's a little tougher to get water there. Tougher to get a septic system in some places. But if you really, really want to do that, live there, if you got enough money, you can do it. It's still cheaper than most places. And this Apache County is the most lenient area I've ever seen, although many states have areas where there's no zoning regulations. Let's see. I was talking to the Apache County building inspector, and super nice guy, older guy. He drives around. Basically his job is just drive around the county, inspecting buildings and just driving around looking things over. So he only answers to a cell phone. He doesn't go into an office, I don't think. Anyway, while I'm talking to him, I says, look, I just want to build a big enough barn to be able to park my shuttle bus inside of, a shuttle bus camper, so that I can come up to Michigan during the summer and be up here for the summer. And he says, well, if you're just going to build a building that doesn't have any plumbing or electric or septic system, he says you can get an agricultural permit, which is a lot cheaper. It's $50. And that's what ranchers get, if they're going to build a barn for their animals or storage of their equipment, whatever. And you can build any size building you want then. I think there's some restrictions on height and distances away from property lines and stuff like that, but those are all common sense things. So I figured, if I could get at least that put in, I could store stuff there easily. But I was having trouble finding a contractor to give me a price. There's several construction companies down there, and they're quite busy. But when I said to them, pole barn, they says, what's a pole barn? I don't know what they call them. I guess a horse barn or something. I don't know. Because there's a lot of ranchers down there, cattle barns, horse barns, equipment barn, I guess you might call them, something. But they didn't know what a pole barn was until I described it. And, I'm used to 4x6s planted in the ground with some concrete poured around them. And then stringers, purlins, trusses, and steel over everything. And rolling doors, sideways rolling doors, up overhead doors, So it was a little bit difficult, and they just, I guess, are busy enough that, and you talk to other people to recommend contractors, and they say, well, they just don't answer their phones very often. And I've left voicemails 3 times over 2 weeks' time. Never heard back from the people. But I don't know. So it can be done, but just be prepared for a little bit of frustration. If you're going to build, there's a process. I think the first thing you got to do is get your septic permit, because you got to perk the land, make sure that you can actually put in a septic system. And if there's electric even in the area, distance is going to be terribly expensive. But if you got some that's nearby, and there is some that's got nearby electric, in order to get a permit for that, you got to have your septic done. You can't get electric without a septic. You can't build without a permit, without a septic permit and the electric in order to get occupancy. So it's a little tricky, but the septic generally comes first. Then you can get electric, so that you can build, I guess. And meanwhile, you're getting your building permit, because they've got to approve your structures and your drawings and stuff. And I was told, that just a crude hand drawing, But if you're going to have a builder, of course, you got to have a lot better design. And they do have a planning commission, so the planning commission has to go over your structure and your building and your parcel layout, where things are, and your property line setbacks, stuff like that. So shipping containers are considered under 200 square, because usually they're 8 feet wide and either 20 foot long or 40 foot long. And I think your 8 by 40 might be bigger than that, but you can get in several of the 8 by 20s if you need to. They're a little more expensive than they are closer to oceans, closer to big cities. But I see quite a few of them out there. You might have to pay quite a bit, have it hauled out there, and maybe a little bit more for the container itself. Mobile homes, or manufactured homes as they call them. Most places will let you do a mobile home or a manufactured home, but then again, you still got to have a permit, septic, electric, all that stuff. And then they're going to require that you have a certain amount of foundation. You can't just put them on the dirt and say, there, I'm done, because they get a lot of high winds down there. And when you apply for a permit, they have requirements of snow load, which compared to Michigan is nothing, but they still have it, because you do get snow, and a tarp won't hold up, right? But they also have wind requirements for your buildings, because they do get some real high winds down there. So beware of that, and make sure that your contractor, he's probably more aware of it than the county is, because they have to deal with that all the time. Let's see. Talked about permits. Let's talk about water. Got to have water, right? Most places down there, wells are like 300 feet deep. And if they've got to go through rock, which they pretty much do, it's going to be very expensive. I've heard up to $20,000 for a well. However, when you're in an area where it's so hard to have wells drilled, generally there's areas where they have water supplies. There's already wells drilled, and you go there, you can purchase water really cheap. And then there's also those places, most of them are going to bring out water. They'll bring water right to you. And it's economical. I've heard prices mentioned of a full load, which is 1,500 gallons, I think, but at $100 for 1,000 gallons. That's pretty cheap when you think about it. You might pay 15 cents a gallon, 15 cents a gallon if you carry it yourself. And there's containers that you can purchase. In Sholo, there's a place that's selling containers right now, the 275 gallon containers that are food grade, that are the white plastic, and they've got a wire cage around them. 275 gallons for 88 bucks. Of course, you got to haul it yourself, or they'll charge you some to bring it to you. But you got to have those washed out, even if they're food grade, because you don't know, it might have had maple syrup in it. Who knows? And you don't want that contaminating your water if you're going to drink it. They sell big round containers of all shapes and sizes. I think the biggest one that you can get down there is $1,500. And if you got a big enough trailer, you can haul it yourself, but they also will bring them to you. I believe the Tractor Supply Company stores carry those, and you can always find someone who can deliver. However, if you're going to live there year-round, they freeze in the winter. Your valves will freeze because, they're closer to the air, The tank itself might not freeze, might get a layer of ice in it, but it probably won't freeze all the way through. But even your 275 gallons, the valves on those can freeze up. Your pipes, your hoses, your pumps, if you leave them outdoors, can freeze up because right now they're talking it's been below freezing for several weeks in this area. Snow, 2 weeks at a time sometimes, so you kind of lose your solar. But getting down to that, through that lava rock, or any rock, can be cost prohibitive of putting in a well. But if you don't want to mess with having it hauled or hauling it yourself, having a tank might be worth it to you if you're wealthy enough to have that done. What I would do is have an inside tank. Probably one of those 275 gallon tanks up on stilts over in a corner in a heated building, in a heated shed, and be able to fill it from the outside so that it doesn't freeze up. Hang on just a minute, I'm going to tend to my puppy. Well, he's sometimes never happy. He's a good doggy, but he does a lot of whining because he's totally deaf. He whines a lot because even if you try talking to him, you may not be solving his issues, and it's hand signals. He hasn't learned them yet. I mean, a few, but like, come here, and stuff like that. But yeah, he does a lot of whining, so I hope you can overlook that, with this video. So anyway, water. If you're going to haul yourself, you need a truck or a trailer to haul it on. And you can put one or two of those 275 gallon tanks on there and go there and fill it up for a few bucks. It's not much. But if you want to have them haul it out to you, they're not going to do it in nasty weather. They're not going to do it if the roads are muddy. Okay, hang on a minute. Put him on my lap. He's a big baby. Okay, so this water that you might have coming to you, or you bring yourself, I would filter it, even though it's coming out of a well. You don't know how long the crap has been in that tank. How clean the tank is. Probably pretty good water, but I would still filter it. And those who live out that way recommend putting a little bit of chlorine in it. And they've got actual chlorine that doesn't have any odor. But be careful how much you put in it. And if you leave the tank open, some of that they call it gassing off. But that'll kill bacteria. If you got it sitting outdoors, you might want to paint it black, so that it doesn't grow algae. But, a black tank is going to heat up, which, be good for taking a shower or a bath. But that's summertime, during the winter, water's still going to be too cold to use unless it's indoors. Uh, anyway, another way of hauling it. One of the guys that I watch on YouTube, he has a SUV. I don't even know that it's four-wheel drive, but he takes two 55-gallon plastic drums and puts them in there with the big opening on the top. Well, not on the top. It's laying on the side, so it's on the top of the side. And he just goes into wherever and fills it up with air hose, brings it back, and he pumps it out into a bigger 1,500-gallon tank that he's got out there. But he's got a couple of 275-gallon, and those he's got set down underneath the roof that he built over a porch, steel roof. And he's got a rain gutter under there that runs down into these two 275-gallon drums. And, he fills them up. And he's even watering a garden with them. I don't know that he drinks that because that, could have bird poop in the water and stuff like that, from landing on the roof, dirt and stuff. Excuse me. But he hauls his own water, most cases. I think the first time he had it filled up, the 1,500-gallon tank. Another one of the YouTubers who lives at he just bought some land, and it's up on White Mountain, which is a higher elevation. That's around 7,000 feet in height instead of like 6,000. He had two of these plastic 55-gallon drums of water sitting there, and it was so cold up there for so long that his drums were froze all the way through. So he's been trying to thaw those out so he can use that water. Meanwhile, he's having to bring in other water. So it can get awful chilly up there during the winter. Like I say, I think I would put in an inside container, but if you're going to be leaving it and coming back after a couple of weeks with the heat off, might be froze up inside there. Frozen water doesn't do you any good unless you like ice cubes for your drinks. Electric. You got to have your septic first, like I mentioned. But a big problem up there is distance. If there's no electricity nearby, extremely expensive. Several of the properties I've looked at up there have electricity on the other side of the road. So basically just across the road, they just put a transformer on the pole and run it over to maybe another pole on your property, and you put your electric in. But still got to have your septic first before they'll even consider it. They have to come out and inspect the property because they might not be able to put a pole in the ground. They might not be able to put poles in the ground to get to you if the electric's a distance away. Solar, that's what many of them use up there because basically they're off the grid or close to off the grid if they're not. But even with the solar system, you're supposed to get a permit for that because, if you want enough solar to sustain yourself for any length of time, you want a pretty big system. Solar panels are getting dirt cheap now because your solar farms that have been built, they've only got a certain amount of time that they'll use those solar panels, and they're still at 80% good yet, still putting out plenty of power. And they're selling them for just pennies on a dollar, basically. And Arizona's got one place down there I know of. I think it's down by Phoenix, where they're selling these huge panels, or big panels. They're 200 or 300 watts at least, maybe more. And so you can have a solar system built. I was talking to a lady down there who. Her husband does mobile mechanic work. And I was asking her all kinds of questions because she was right close, within a couple miles of the property I was looking at. And she says her husband does solar installs. And, that can get into a lot of money too because your batteries are expensive. The solar panels are expensive. You got to have a controller, all kinds of stuff. Inverters. And the reason you've got to have a permit for that, if it's an obvious solar system, not on a vehicle, but build on the ground or up on top of a roof and they can see it. You could get nailed for not having a permit if you've done it. Most people do it anyway without a permit. I'm not telling you to. But there's a fire hazard. These things are powerful. Lithium batteries can catch fire and you ain't going to put it out. That'll go on to the next one and burn that, get that one burning, and pretty soon you got a bonfire that can be seen all the way across the state. But also potential for electrocution. If you're at 12 volts, you're not going to get electrocuted by it, but things can explode. Fires can happen. And if you're inverting it back up to a usable power like 110 volt or 220, you got a potential that is no different than power from a power pole. It can electrocute children. It can set houses on fire. So, it's a good reason for having a permit, assuming that they know what they're talking about, for inspections. County-wise, I think they've got one inspector, for everything that's ever going to be done. I don't know. I think solar is the way that I'm going to go. But then you have to put up with snow. And the one YouTuber that I watch, his don't lay flat on the ground. He's got them tilted a little bit, but they're covered with snow every time that it snows. And he's got to go out there and clean them off with a broom, maybe heat underneath them so that it melts the snow off from it, ice, to get it to where they're functional. It could be a bit of a situation, especially in the winter. You do have to keep them clean, with dust and dirt blowing. You got to have them up high enough where cattle, which free range up there everywhere, where they're not walking on them or trying to walk on them, because they will. And they're cattle, they're nosy. They'll come around your house, inquisitive, and trample on your gardens, eat your fruit crops. Most of them up there will fence in anything that they don't want the cows to be messing with. They'll get up against it and rub against it and knock things down. Anyway, it's the way it is. But you get a lot of cloudy skies everywhere in the United States. And, if you look up, you ask a question to Google, that area might get 250 days of sunshine. What are you going to do the rest of the time? A generator. That's what most of them have, so that they can keep their batteries charged up or run something direct with it. But another option is wind power, but there's times when there's no wind. This morning I woke up here in Michigan, and a 2-mile-an-hour wind, which is nothing. You can't even feel it. And it might be that way for days, but down in Arizona, the wind blows probably more often than the sun shines. And, but, you might consider a combination of wind power. I don't see many wind towers down there that are personally owned, but you can get them. They're not very powerful because when you're trying to spin a propeller with wind, your generator, your alternator, whatever you want to call it, that is trying to spin is going to resist. In order to create power, it's got to resist that. So you got to have a fairly good size windmill with it in order to get that. You might be able to build your own. Shopping. In the area that I'm talking about here, Sholo is the place to shop. You've got some bigger cities which they don't have a Walmart. They don't have a building supply store. But Sholo has got them both. And most everything else, they've got hotels, restaurants, although the food in almost all the restaurants I've looked at, try to look at their menus, they're pretty expensive. So you're better off cooking your own meals. McDonald's, Burger King, probably the same prices roughly as anywhere else in the country. But the further away from the town they are, the more they're going to charge because food's got to be hauled there. But anyway, Sholo's got Walmart and it's got a Home Depot. Now, I called Home Depot about pole barns because the Home Depots up here, they've got a database for professionals. If you want a bathroom built, call Home Depot. They'll give you 6 or 7 places that'll do a bathroom. Build out a tub for you. They'll give you contractors' names who will put a new roof on your house or new windows or a pole barn. And that's what I was calling about. And first off, I got some girls, and the girls can be very knowledgeable, but sometimes they're not. Just like in automotive, repair, they weren't raised to be knowledgeable in those areas. And of course, they didn't know what a pole barn was. Nobody seems to know what a pole barn is. So I says, well, how about a horse barn? Oh, yeah, we know about that. But then they couldn't get their database to work because of the selections that were available in there, and they didn't know how to use it because nobody ever calls them to find some professionals. And so I started just Googling contractors of all different kinds, and I did find some names and even a couple of websites, but so far not one of them has reached back out to me after many messages. But, if you're persistent, if you go down there, I'm sure you can talk to them because they're always home at night. Let's see. Let's talk about camping areas. If you don't have a piece of land chosen, you want to go down there and you want to look over some land, which you should, in order to know that you're getting what you're really trying to order or trying to buy. BLM land, called Bureau of Land Management, that's a government, federal government, or national forests, or state trust lands. North of Cholo, which is in Navajo County, right next door, north of there's quite a bit of BLM land, and I'm not talking about Black Lives Matter. People get upset, I say BLM, but it's Bureau of Land Management land, and there's some maps that will show you trails. They'll show you federal lands, state lands, stuff like that, campsites, campgrounds. But, you need to know where these properties are and how to get there to them and where you can travel on them. And some might be posted no camping. Day use is a big factor everywhere in Arizona. Day use only. It means you can have a picnic there, but you can't stay overnight. So, Walmart is a possibility. A lot of Walmarts will let you stay overnight if you got a camper. But go in and ask. Make some purchases so they know that you're a viable customer. Home Depot might let you. I don't think they've got what do they call themselves? It's a country restaurant. I can't think of it right now. But anyway, if you want to go out onto BLM land, I'm going to give you some map apps, websites, map apps, I guess is a better word to say, of where you can find this stuff. Okay, first I'm going to give you some clues about where to buy land or where to find land to buy. And firstly on that is real estate offices, but generally they're not going to know anything about that property other than what someone tells them. And they're probably not going to go out there with you, which most of these aren't going to neither. Try to get local ones because, California company, they're definitely not going to come out and show you where this land is. You're on your own. But, let's see. Grizzly Property Group. I've used them quite a bit. They've only got like 6 or 7 properties right there in this area, but they're nicely treed. Some of them got good roads. 2 of them got electricity right at the property. They're out of California, but put down when you're looking it up on a website, Grizzly Property Group, Arizona. And even though they're California, you'll get, I think there's 3 brothers that actually run this company, and they've got some pretty good deals. And 0 down, or very little down, 0%, pay a certain amount per month, no credit checks, stuff like that, super way of buying if you want to, but if you're going to get a building permit, you got to own land, especially if you're going to get a bank loan to do the improvements. If you got cash, but you maybe, if you're making payments on it and you end up leaving it, for whatever reason, health reasons, whatever, you're leaving all that property behind, all the improvements you've done. You're better off if you can be able to sell it with those improvements on it. And this Grizzly Property Group, they have videos of where they walk through on these properties, because he's not going to come from California to walk through it with you. Beware, though, these properties I was looking at had lava flow under the ground in a lot of the cases, and the septic contractors I've talked to, 3 of them, said, yeah, they're sometimes very tough to get a septic put in there and expensive. Land.com, but beware, they're glorifying land. They'll say 2 acres for $2,600. You look at pictures in there, and it's of mountains and big trees and lakes and streams and all that stuff. And you look at the actual property, and it's flat land, no features, no trees, scrub brush, sand. It's nothing like what they're promoting. They're liars. Put it that way. That's straight up, they're liars. So beware of that. And, if they give you the location, you can look these things up and see the actual parcel number. It'll zoom you right down onto that land. You can see everything on that land. You can see the washes. You can see the bushes. You can see elevations. So land.com and Lmodo, LMODO.com. And I think you can still get that if you go landmodo.com. And Landmodo, they give some pretty good videos of this stuff where they have gone out and walked the area, or they're showing you realistic maps, but they'll still glorify it. So beware of all that stuff. Okay, now I'm going to give you these apps that you can use to zoom in on these things. And one I started using first, because I wanted to know where camping land was U.S. Public Lands. U.S. Public Lands. Write this stuff down. U.S. Public Lands. This is pretty cool because it has layers that you can put on it that show you where BLM land is, where the national forests are, where Corps of Engineer property is. Just so many. Reclamation. All those things. And you can turn it on and off. It'll show some trails. I don't know that it's that good about that. Definitely won't show you that you can cross on this, because it doesn't show the trails or tell enough about them. And then next one that I use quite a bit is where's my mind here? Okay, here we go. OnX. OnX is better because you can zoom right in, and it's still going to show you where trails are that aren't, because it's a map and it's showing you where it's been surveyed for trails, but they may not be there because they were never improved. And it can show you the property owner's name, but that's as far as it goes. And it can show you how many acres it is. But the best one by far is, where did I put it here? Land Glide. LandGlide. Not guide. Landglide.com. Or it's an app, I'm sorry. That shows everything. It'll show the property owner's name. You click on it, and it'll surround your property with an orange lines, and you can pull up below who owns it, how big an acreage it is, what they pay for taxes, what the property was sold at last time, what the property is valued at, and also their address. Yeah, their address. So if you're looking for a piece of land, you can't find one for sale, go into some of these other apps and find some property in the area where you want to be and zoom in on it with this land glide and start looking over the parcel sizes that you'd like to have. I'm in particular interested in 1 acres up to 5 acres. But it's got to have a trail, an existing trail beside it. I don't want a break trail. I'm not going to have a bulldozer out there, so I can't do that. But Land Glide will give you the name and address so that you can actually, and the property, the parcel number, all that stuff, coordinates, so that you can find it again and you can mark them and make notes. And also, so I found one property that is right beside the property that Grizzly had, and it's owned by an individual who lives in Florida. Well, maybe they're getting old. If it's not a trust, because some of these properties you'll find are in a trust, family trust. So if it's ever going to be sold, all the kids got to get together to sell it, but if it's an individual that owns it, and they've had it, because this Land Glide tells you how long they've owned it when they bought it. They might be getting tired of having it and paying the taxes, although most of these are only $15 a year, so why not hang on to it, But they may decide they're never going to use it and they'll sell it. Expensive, cheap, who knows? It's worth a try. It's worth a couple of stamps, to send out some mailers to some of these people and just say you're interested in land. And, they might be suspicious that you're a real estate agent just looking for something to build a portfolio on. So, do it realistic, do it in handwriting, tell them you're down there looking, or that you're looking online and you see their name listed, and you're an individual, you're not a real estate company. You're not going to be bothering them with real estate agents. But you'd like to know if they're interested in selling their property. And if so, what would they like to get for it? And then you can get into a bargaining if they decide they want to sell it. Okay, now this has been an hour-long video at least, so I'm going to let you guys go. I hope you took lots of notes. Go back and watch this again. But take notes, because if you're serious about going down there, whether you just want a place to camp, whether you want a place to live, you want a place just to store stuff, watch this again. Navajo County, it's more expensive, a lot more regulations. I mean, a lot more, even for camping. So, look in Apache County. There's some areas that they're too remote to even live in, too remote to even bother to, because you wouldn't get out. I mean, you might go 30 miles on trails that aren't improved just to get out to a paved road. Yeah, that's if you got muddy weather, 30 miles of mud, well, forget it, So anyway, this is Doug from youtube.com/@tramptraveler. Watch my other movies. I'd appreciate it. Last one was about property too. You might listen to that one. It wasn't near as comprehensive as this one. But look me up on those YouTube channels. This will be video 33 I've done. And most of it was about building out my shuttle bus. I got a lot of innovative ideas. Start from the beginning, watch every one of them. I'm an old guy, kind of pokey at getting things done, so, and I don't like being on camera for lengths of time because, I shuffle around too slow to make a building something interesting, and I can put it on speed filming, so that you can see it. One of them's got me building cupboards to the tune of the Lone Ranger music, and it's kind of comical, but it works. So anyway, watch them. I'd like you to like the video. I think there's a way you can save it. But subscribe. That's the best way. Subscribe. And then there's a white bell you can touch. Then there's a black bell you can touch, which gives you all of the videos coming into your device. And then comment. If you got questions, I'll try to answer them. I would hope that there's some questions. needing clarification or something like that. If you know somebody who might be elderly or handicapped, have them watch my shuttle bus builds, because it's got a handicap lift on it, and I'll be able to use that with a wheelchair. Handicapped people or elderly don't have to be stuck at home. They can go camping with a shuttle bus that's got a handicap lift on it, or a school bus has got a handicap lift, or other vehicles, But there aren't a lot of vehicles, have got a handicap lift on them. They're in good shape, so you got to be real careful with that. But send them to my YouTube channel, which is at Tramp Traveler, and I'll try to put that down below. And have a good week. Take care, and thank you.